Hello everybody, my name is The Strange Eli and welcome to another video. In celebration of Pride Month, I wanted to continue on our series of doing LGBT things. So I wanted to tell you all my coming out story. I haven't really talked about this at all on my channel before. I've never even officially said like, this is this. So let me just start off this video by saying that I am pansexual. And for those who don't know what that means, pansexual is effectively similar to bisexuality, but instead of being attracted to things and people from like a kind of a visual level, a lot of my sexual tension or chemistry with people relies on whether or not I feel I have chemistry with them. And so if I am talking to someone and we are just like hitting it off and I am really good friends with them and they're just like, we're just vibing each other, I'm more likely to be attracted with that person than anyone else. And this doesn't really matter on gender. So I am attracted to technically both men and women, or really anyone else that I can have a nice conversation with. Now, my coming out story isn't particularly great. Both of my parents are aware at this point that I am pansexual, and I've either told them directly or they've made guesses. But I wanted to go ahead and tell you those stories today, and I will leave them mostly uncut because I just want you to kind of be there with me through my whole range of emotions as I'm sharing these stories. So let's start off with the story of how I told my mom. So the story of me telling my mom is actually really short and pretty simple. I was going to a physical, a medical checkup, and as we were leaving, I was talking to my mom about, they had asked me stuff about my sexual history and stuff like that. And I had said, Mom, do you know that I'm pansexual? And she said, I didn't, but I guessed. And then she was like, so what does that mean? And I was like, and I had told her basically what I had told you, that, it means chemistry over necessarily physical attractiveness. And she was like, okay. And then that was kind of it. She said that she had accepted that and she still loved me and the stuff that you typically hear from a supportive parent. And it was great. And so far in life, hasn't really affected me negatively one way or the other. My mom even sometimes will show me Instagram posts of like really attractive men and will be like, Eli, and I'll be like, whoa. And so we can kind of geek out together about hot guys. And I think that that's really nice of her to kind of to do that, because she does know about who I am. But she never does it in a way that's like, oh, Eli, you would like this, like in a mocking way. It's always real. It's always genuine. And so I love my mom and I appreciate everything that she did in that. And she supported me through that very well. But of course I told her when I had told her that I was pan, I asked her to please not tell Dad. And as I get into that story, you will soon understand why. So when I told my dad, I was having an argument with him in this room that I film in. It's my bedroom. And we were talking about school, probably because we argue about school all the time. And it had gotten to kind of a screaming match, and there was things that I told him that I wanted to change, and that there was things that I wanted to do with my future and all these things. And I was so upset, and I had been thinking for a really long time, like, up to this point, I was like, I gotta tell my dad eventually. I gotta let him know. It's eating me up. I'm thinking about it all the time. And so I told him. I was like, Dad, I have something I need to tell you. And he said, what, that you're gay? And I was like, and I thought it was funny at the time. I was like, well, not exactly. And he's like, what? And I said, it took me a really, really long time to tell him. I was sitting there in the room and he's like, what? And after a pause, I said, I am pansexual. And I wanted you to know. And he said, okay, what is that? And so I explained to him what it meant. And he said, okay, well, do you know? Yeah, I know. And he was like, well, maybe you're not sure yet. You're still pretty young, Eli. You don't know. Like, a lot of people go through, and I just cut him off there, and I was like, Dad, I know people go through these things where they don't know whether or not they're gay or straight or whatever. I told him that, there was a point in which I thought I was asexual. There was a point in which I thought that I was strictly gay. There was a time where I thought that maybe I identified as a woman. There was all these things that had gone through my head, but for the longest time, for all those things that I had gone through, all those phases where I thought that I was these different things, the one that stuck with me the longest and the one that I personally identify with is being pansexual. And I had told him the story. I had told him this story that about this one time. I was in a hotel room with some of my fellow Boy Scouts, as gay as that sounds. And I told him that we had, like, jokingly, like, we'd all taken our shirts off and we were all running around. And one of my friends at the time, I had cuddled up with him in a hotel, chair. And at the time, it was purely ironic. But it didn't, my friend wasn't adamant about letting go or pushing me off. And he gave me enough time to realize that, like, oh wait, this is really nice, and that this is something that I want. And so I told him all of these things. Of course, I had told him who, because he knew them. But ultimately, he was like, okay, well, it's going to be really weird if you bring a guy home. You know that, right? And I said, yeah. And he's like, well, I still love you. It's just going to be weird, and I don't know really what else to say. And that was it. That was the whole conversation about me coming out to my dad. And up to that point, I didn't have my flag up. And for a while after that, I continued not having my flag up. I was worried that every time that someone came over, or every time that they entered a room, they would immediately look at it as a symbol of something that my dad can't control. Or, no, I wasn't worried about my mom, but I was always worried that if someone came over, they were going to say, oh, well, you need to take that down, and then just put it back up when they leave, or something like that. I was always so concerned, because there had been so many other times in the past where my dad had said something that was really homophobic or really transphobic, or just something that was aggressively heteronormative. And all it did was make me feel unsafe about coming out to him or telling him any personal stuff about myself. But of course, I really recommend to anyone, who fits into that LGBT thing, if you feel like you can't come out to your parents, or if you feel like you're going to be unsafe, if you feel like it's going to be a bad decision, maybe wait until you're in a different location. Maybe wait until you're in a place where that's not going to be taken away from you if you be who you want to be. Of course, that sounds awful, because you want to be who you want to be now, but you also have to consider things for your safety. If I've heard plenty of stories about people who come out to their parents and then are kicked out, and they end up being homeless, essentially just because they were who they wanted to be. But you have to consider your safety. And on top of that, if you feel like maybe your parents will be okay with it, maybe sometimes it's worth taking a risk too. You have to be smart about it, because the last thing I want is for people to be persecuted or being treated poorly because they are who they want to be. And we have to fight that all the time. Anyways, guys, I'm sorry that this video has been a real downer, but I know that there's good in the world, and that you can be the catalyst for that good in the world. So be that good in the world. And on top of that, if you like this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. If they bring back the rating system, go ahead and give this video 5 stars, but we all know they won't. In the comments down below, tell me about your coming out story. Tell me about your experience in the LGBT community and stuff like that. And that will be it for this video. My Twitter will be floating around here somewhere on screen, and I will talk to y'all later. Bye-bye.